Welcome to Tokyo Wave, recorded in a live studio in Harajuku, Japan, with your hosts Aaron and Parker. All right, everyone, welcome to episode 61 of Tokyo Wave. We are your hosts, Aaron Randall
and Parker Allen. On Tokyo Wave, we bring you weekly updates from our studio in Harajuku.
Join us in segments featuring this week's top news,
political happenings,
business,
and other random garbage.
To get us started, here are this week's top news highlights.
Japan's COVID-19 vaccination rollout picks up steam.
Japan to fund CO2 reduction steps by bankrolling cities and firms.
West Japan police see DUI cases shift to home drinkers and earlier times amid pandemic.
This week in Japan. Our first story, Japan's COVID-19 vaccination rollout picks up steam.
Kyodo News has reported that Japan's COVID-19 vaccination efforts are picking up steam, with many local governments set to expand their rollout to those under 65 this month. And preparations are also underway for on-site inoculations at workplaces and universities.
The government, which launched its vaccination program for those 65 and older in April, had originally planned to begin its vaccine rollout for those under 65 only after finishing vaccinating around 36 million elderly people.
When are we going to get that vaccine? But the inoculation drive is now being accelerated with less than 2 months before the Tokyo Olympics are set to open.
Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga, facing criticism for the slow vaccine rollout compared with other developed countries, announced a series of policy changes at the end of May to speed up COVID-19 vaccinations in Japan.
Jab, jab, jabbity, jab, jab, jab. It's the policy. The government also said earlier this month it will start vaccinations at workplaces and universities on June the 21st. As of June 9th, over 1,000 companies have applied for the scheme.
So they don't want people to go to work, but they're going to do vaccinations at the workplace?
Yeah, exactly. You know, the ACCJ, the American Chamber of Commerce in Japan, recently sent out a questionnaire to its member companies asking if they would be interested in getting their vax at the ACCJ. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, wow. I mean, that's pretty good.
I replied, very yes.
Yeah. Hey, this is good news, right? I think, a lot of us were anticipating some kind of speed up before the Olympics, because how ridiculous is it to have 5% inoculated when you're about to hold the Olympics, right?
And the numbers are looking better. I think we're at about 10% as of today.
Oh,
and
great.
Yeah, get the jab at the chamber.
Yeah.
Hot diggity damn.
And up next, Japan to fund CO2 reduction steps by bankrolling cities and firms.
Kyodo News has also reported that the government will financially aid decarbonization measures by municipalities and companies over multiple years as Japan seeks to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. Its medium to long-term roadmap on the issue showed on June the 9th.
The government will also introduce solar power generation in all public facilities of the state or municipalities by 2040, according to the roadmap.
We're going solar.
Wasn't Japan known for solar power 10, 20 years ago?
Yeah, they really put solar panels on all these government buildings, and they're apparently trying to use this to achieve carbon neutrality.
And there's solar farms all over Japan too. I remember
all over the place. It's actually become a bit of an issue because a lot of these solar farms are being built on land that was forested.
Yeah.
And so they're basically destroying the Japanese countryside and building solar farms.
Yeah. The one downside.
At a meeting with representatives of municipalities at the Premier's office, Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga called for the central and local governments to coordinate so that measures taken in regional areas would contribute to the country's decarbonization.
To spearhead efforts to reduce CO2 emissions, the government will select at least 100 regions from remote islands, rural districts, urban areas, and other places to achieve net zero CO2 emissions by fiscal 2030 and share their best practices.
Hey there, Mr. Deserted Island. How about a solar farm?
Hey there, Mr. Tanaka. The government claims eminent domain over your property. We're going to build solar power here. You got to move out.
Decarbonization.
Oh, I just moved in here. That's kind of dumb. That happens in the States all the time, though.
Yeah. Eminent domain.
Yeah. Do they have that here?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
Well, haven't you seen all these roads that they're building around Tokyo, and they're kicking out all of these people living there to widen the roads, basically?
I imagine in Japan, though, it's more of like kind of a thing where we're doing this and...
Thank you for your cooperation.
Yeah. Thank you for your cooperation. The Shinkansen's going to pass right over your house. It's going to be a bit noisy, might rattle a bit. It runs all night. Sorry about that.
This is the future. Sucks to be you.
Or thank you for contributing to the future of our country.
And up next, West Japan police see DUI cases shift to home drinkers and earlier times amid pandemic.
The Mainichi has reported that the problem of drinking and driving in a certain Western Japanese prefecture is shifting under the coronavirus pandemic, as restaurants and bars shorten their business hours and more people choose to imbibe at home.
Until this year, Wakayama Prefectural Police tended to catch more people driving under the influence the later at night it got. But more DUI cases have been detected between 7 and 9 p.m. this year and over the Golden Week holiday period in late April and early May. Police say they caught more people who had been drinking at home than out on the town. And this raises a question. If people are drinking in the comfort of their own abodes, then why in the hell are they driving?
The prefectural police compared the number of DUI cases logged at what times of day in January through May from 2019 to 2021. There were 6 cases in the 7 to 9 p.m. slot in those months of 2019, 9 in 2020, and 15 in 2021. However, when it came to the 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. slot, there were 23 cases in 2019, 16 in 2020, and 9 in 2021.
Furthermore, from April 29th to May the 5th of this year, the most common drinking spot for those caught driving while drunk was at home. In 6 cases, while only 3 drinkers had been imbibing at a restaurant or bar. Familiar spots to Japanese observers such as a convenience store and on the riverside had 1 case each. Also, those caught between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. made up nearly half of all drinking and driving cases for the period.
So I imagine Uber is not a big thing in Wakayama?
Apparently not.
Because I mean, this is usually the go-to way to curb this, right?
Yes.
Pick up an Uber, get in a taxi if you're wasted.
When I was in college, I had a colleague who was Irish and very ironically was quite deft at the drinking and driving technique. And one time he was drinking and told me a story about how he had the top secret plan for when he was pulled over by the police.
What was the plan?
He would stop, obey the instructions, look down, put a hat on, and just look like a typical, old salaryman farmer type. And then when they said, "Konya wa nondemasu ka?" he would always, do his best, old Oji-san impression and say, "Nonde ne." And they would let him off the hook every time.
Really. But I mean, it's a non-Japanese dude, right? It's a white dude.
So he had to do an Oji-san impression,
Oh wow.
Raspy voice, "Nonde ne."
And the laws here are really strict, right? Because what is it in the States? Depending on the state, the alcohol content can actually be quite high. Like you can have 2 or 3 beers or whatever. But in Japan, it's like 0.001.
0.01.
Yeah.
And so if you're over that 0.01, then you are DUIing.
Yeah. I do have a couple foreign friends here that have gotten in trouble with that, because I think people forget how strict it is here.
Yes, and so if you have a beer or two and then take the wheel, it's about a 500,000 yen fine.
Yikes.
Then if you are what is referred to as dead drunk while driving, which is, 3 or more beers, the fine goes up to 1 million yen and immediate license suspension.
Is it no arrest? It's just like a fee-based thing?
I think they might put you in the drunk tank.
Yeah,
The Japanese drunk tank. I wonder what that's like.
They just like pour water on you all night. Spray you down.
Hose you down.
Wake up, boy. We gotta hose you down. All right, and up next on Weird Thing of the Week, we're going to be talking about tourism opening up in Europe.
You're now listening to Tokyo Wave. The Weird Thing of the Week.
So Europe has told tourists, welcome back. Now work out the rules.
Europe is opening up to Americans and other visitors after more than a year of COVID-induced restrictions in hope of luring back tourists and their dollars to the continent's trattorias, vistas, and cultural treasures. But travelers will need patience to figure out who's allowed into which country, how, and when.
The Associated Press recently reported that as the European Union's doors reopen one by one to the outside world for the first time since March 2020, tourists will discover a patchwork of systems instead of a single border-free leisure zone, because national governments have resisted surrendering control over their frontiers amid the pandemic. Also, if you're interested in traveling to jolly old Britain, post-Brexit Britain is going its own way altogether.
Meanwhile, the welcoming mood isn't always mutual. U.S. borders, for example, remain largely closed to non-Americans.
Here's a look at current entry rules in some popular European tourist destinations. One caveat: while these are the regulations as written by governments, travelers may meet hiccups as airlines or railway officials try to make sense of them.
So first we start with France. If you're vaccinated, come to France.
It's beautiful.
But only if you got one of the 4 EU-approved vaccines: Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Moderna, or Johnson & Johnson. That works for Americans as long as they can produce official proof of vaccination, but not for large swaths of the world like China and Russia, where other vaccines were used.
France's borders officially reopened on June 9th. Vaccinated visitors from outside Europe and a few green countries will still be asked for a negative PCR test no older than 72 hours, or a negative antigen test of no more than 48 hours. Unvaccinated children, those dirty bastards, will be allowed in with vaccinated adults, but will have to show a negative test from age 11. So, if you're under 11, Corona, no problem.
Yeah, wow. These rules, the 72 hours, that's what we have here in Japan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like Chuck E. Cheese, under 11, kids eat free.
Tourists are banned from 16 countries wrestling with virus surges and worrisome variants that are on a red list that includes India, South Africa, and Brazil.
There's a red list. That sounds ominous. Non-vaccinated visitors from less dangerous orange list countries, including the United States and Britain, can't come for tourism either, only for specific imperative reasons.
Wow, we've only gone through one country, but already I'm getting the sense that all the things I've been complaining about Japan are universal.
Next up, we have Italy.
Americans, the second biggest group of foreign tourists to Italy, have been welcome since mid-May. However, they need to self-isolate upon arrival for 10 days unless they arrive on so-called, quote, COVID-tested flights. That means passengers are tested before and after the flight and must fill out documents about their whereabouts to facilitate contact tracing if required.
So you want to meet the Pope? Got to get on the COVID-tested flight. COVID-tested flights from the United States started in December and have also been operating since May from Canada, Japan, and the United Arab Emirates.
Italy also started allowing tourists from Britain and Israel last month, meaning they no longer need an, quote, essential reason to visit and don't have to self-isolate, providing they present proof of a negative COVID test taken no more than 48 hours prior to arrival.
It's pizza time if you're from the UK or Israel. In other cases, it is not pizza time. The same rules apply to travelers from EU countries and those on those COVID-tested flights from the United States, Canada, Japan, and the United Arab Emirates. But only if you travel first class. Losers.
Already seems like too much of a pain in the ass for France or Italy until things calm down. All right. Up next, we have Greece.
Tourism-reliant Greece started opening to American travelers back in April, and now visitors from China, Britain, and 20 other countries are also allowed to visit for non-essential travel to the Parthenon.
So all must provide a vaccination certificate or a negative PCR test and fill in a passenger locator form on their plans in Greece. This directive expires on June 14th, but could be extended.
It's all Greek to me. Athens long pressed for a common EU approach, but didn't wait for one to materialize. On June the 1st, Greece, Germany, and 5 other bloc members introduced a COVID certificate system for travelers, weeks ahead of the July 1 rollout of the program across the 27-nation EU bloc.
Yeah, you know, I have some family that's already gone to Greece and back before April. This is not surprising to me. Greece does seem like one of those countries that would be a lot more lax about this. So,
Greece it is. Let's grease it up.
And up next, we have Spain.
Oh, another country that probably doesn't have very strict restrictions. Because, Spain doesn't really have rules.
I mean, I haven't been to Spain. I was planning on going there before COVID, but so...
Spain kicked off its summer tourism season on June the 7th by welcoming vaccinated visitors from the United States and most countries, as well as European visitors who can prove that they are not infected with the Rona.
Americans and most other non-Europeans need an official vaccine certificate by a health authority. Spain accepts those who were inoculated with the 4 EU-approved vaccines, as well as 2 Chinese vaccines authorized by the World Health Organization, as long as visitors are fully vaccinated at least 2 weeks before the trip.
Arrivals from Brazil, South Africa, and India are banned at the moment because of high infection rates in those countries, and non-vaccinated Americans, those anti-vaxxers, and many other non-EU nationalities cannot come to Spain for tourism right now.
But there are exceptions for countries considered at low risk, such as citizens from Britain who can arrive without any health documents at all. EU citizens need to provide proof of vaccination, a certificate showing they recently recovered from COVID-19, or a negative antigen or PCR test taken within 48 hours of arrival.
So if you're from the UK, go to Spain. They don't give a flying fuck.
Well, honestly, the rules that Spain has are kind of the rules I was hoping the world would adopt, right? Like proof of vaccination, whether or not, I don't have any comments on what vaccine is better than the other, but if you have proof of vaccination, let people travel freely is my whole thing. And I'm glad to see Spain is actually in that direction.
It's like a vaccine passport.
Yeah, weren't we supposed to have those?
Bureaucracy. Yay.
Up next, Britain. There are few, if any, American tourists in the UK at present. Britain has a traffic light system for assessing countries by risk, and the US, along with most European nations, is on the amber list, meaning everyone arriving has to self-isolate at home or in the place they are staying for 10 days.
And if your name is Megan, you're banned. Also Harry. UK and US airlines and airport operators are pushing for a travel corridor to allow tourism to resume, and Prime Minister Bojo the Clown is expected to raise the issue when he meets President Jimmy Joe Biden at a G7 summit in jolly old England this week.
Meanwhile, anyone traveling between Britain and continental Europe, be warned. In addition to the isolation requirement for those arriving or returning to UK shores, rising concern about the Delta variant of the virus has prompted some other countries to introduce special restrictions for those arriving from Britain.
Corona Delta. I wonder if she can get Sky Miles.
Mr. Miyamoto, so the last one was Delta, but what are we going to call the new variant?
This one is called Square.
Oh, God. Next up, the European Union, which is ironic because didn't we just talk about a bunch of countries that are technically in the European Union?
Yeah. It's I can already the bureaucracy is so
What's the word? Fucked.
or palpable.
Palpable. Holy shit. Look at that word.
That's what I was looking for. Because each country has their own rules, and then the EU has their own rules as well.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, gosh.
EU.
So the 27-nation EU has no unified COVID, tourism, or border policy, but has been working for months on a joint digital travel certificate for those vaccinated, freshly tested, or recently recovered from the virus. EU lawmakers endorsed the plan Wednesday.
I'm sure they had a committee meeting. The EU loves committees. So these free certificates, which will contain a QR code with advanced security features, tinfoil hat time, will allow people to move between European countries without having to quarantine or undergo extra coronavirus tests upon arrival.
Thank God someone is doing this.
They have a committee.
They have a digital chip QR code that allows James Bond to go anywhere. I just imagine, like, when we were describing this, I just imagine, like, you know, some like organization taking advantage of it, and like it's a black market where all these
MI6.
Yeah.
I have a license to travel.
I thought you couldn't travel to China right now.
I have a license to travel.
Several EU countries have already begun using the system, including Spain, Germany, Greece, Bulgaria, Croatia, and the Czech Republic, Denmark, and Poland. The rest are expected to start July 1st.
So this policy is mainly meant for EU citizens, but Americans and others can obtain this certificate too if they can convince EU authorities and their committees in an EU country they're entering that they qualify for one. Also, the lack of an official U.S. vaccination certification system may further complicate matters.
I mean, and this is also what we're going to see in Japan too. If Japan is slow on coming out with any kind of vaccination and certificate system, everything's going to be slow here in Asia, trying to travel, you know, even locally.
So I think the top tip for traveling to Europe right now, given the circumstances, is good luck, guys. It looks like it's pretty complicated.
Looks like Greece and Spain are going to be...
Greece and Spain, yeah.
If you're vaccinated, you're good to go.
All you can drink red wine.
Yeah. Man. But, you know, reading this, I really wish that Japan had some kind of roadmap. You know, we just talked about they're spending time on preparing solar roadmaps, etc. Maybe they could put a little time into for a roadmap for a vaccination reentry system.
Maybe they can give a vaccine certificate to solar panels.
Only if you're carrying a certain amount of solar panels.
Exactly. If you have 10 solar panels in your suitcase, then you're good.
Yeah. Did you hear at the Olympics, so athletes are allowed to travel into Japan?
Yes, with their 150,000 condoms.
And one trainer.
One.
Yeah, only one trainer.
Only one trainer. Well, it must be they gotta pick.
Yeah. So
they'll have like an Olympics for trainers.
Yeah. And, probably Captain Obvious, but for those who don't know, the Olympics are only 2 weeks long, right? So I think, I was worried for a while, letting all these people into a country with such a low inoculation rate could be a high risk. But if it's just one athlete, one trainer, 2 weeks, what's the worst that can happen?
And they're going to lock them in and force them to use this stupid app with GPS installed.
And the app's not going to work great.
Of course not.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to stay at an APA hotel.
Really? You think they'll put them at APA?
Yeah, I have a friend who just got back, and the mandated quarantine is mostly being serviced by APA Hotel.
Oh my gosh. That's funny.
So, Olympians, welcome to Japan. Enjoy the APA.
But I wanted to go to Hakone and Kyushu.
No. The answer is no.
I wanted to hit up Kyoto and then also go to Hokkaido to get some Sapporo Biro.
Yeah, the Olympics this year is really going to suck for the Olympians. I mean, they're not going to be able to travel. They're not going to be able to use any of those 100,000 condoms they're being given. It's going to be
So the condom thing's not a joke. They're actually...
Oh, it's really real.
They're giving a lot of condoms.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because Olympians, apparently, they like to engage in...
fun stuff.
Sporting activities
during the sporting season.
They're at the height of their career.
It's also a lot of psychological stress being stuck inside a hotel for that long. Right?
And people are already saying that it's going to affect the performance of these Olympians. As, being stuck inside a hotel for 2 weeks, how are you going to run really fast?
Yeah. And even now at the French Open, it's really crazy, the schedule they have to follow if they want to practice. There were reports coming out that even for the people there, and leading up to it, just lots of stress. As we're talking about, stuck inside the hotel, before you have to go out and practice, you have to do a COVID test before and after. I don't know. It sucks.
It's tough to be a sport right now,
Yeah, for sure.
Great time to be a loser who can't do sports. I was kind of hoping we could get some tickets to go see the Olympics opening ceremony with the fireworks and whatnot.
So what's going on with that? Like, they sold a bunch of tickets, I know, like 2 years ago online.
It looks like they are going to allow domestic spectators, but it's really unclear. And also, I don't know where to buy the tickets.
I feel like me and you, like, even though, we're residents and stuff, if we showed up as spectators, I feel like we're going to get asked a lot of questions,
What are you doing here? Where's your certificate? Where are your papers?
Yeah. I was a resident in Japan, but I tried to go to see the Olympic Games. I got deported the same day. So, that sucks.
Those rings.
It's all about the rings.
They're interlocking.
Yeah, and the opening ceremonies, right? I wonder what band's gonna play. Have they talked about that yet?
The Weeknd.
The Weeknd. It's Olympic athletes, their trainer, and the Weeknd. That's who's allowed in Japan.
Gotta get the Weeknd,
Yeah. That's great.
Hey, listeners, that's right. You listener right there.
Who do you think should be our next guest on Tokyo Wave? Let us know. Drop us a line at wave@tokyowave.jp.
We hope you enjoyed Tokyo Wave.
If you haven't already, you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Join us again next week on Tokyo Wave.